Hi folks, welcome to Set Apart Homestead. This is Travis. As you can see, I'm not on a homestead. Doing a little traveling and had an idea for a video and thought maybe a city-urban scene would be appropriate for the video. So what do you do if you have to bug out or you're caught in a major disaster scenario and you're in the city? Maybe you live in the city, maybe you commute in the city. You know, the majority of Americans live or work in a, larger populated area. So the odds are that you either live, work, or at some point will be in a higher populated area. So you have to be prepared because things happen. And it doesn't always have to be apocalyptic. Of course, that is a scenario. It could be you're on vacation and you're caught in a hurricane or tornado. There could be some type of evacuation that's necessary. There are all sorts of scenarios that could happen. And of course, big things, that are on the apocalyptic level. Now, if you live or work in an urban environment, you have a little bit of an advantage over those that would be traveling through a large city environment. Hopefully you're not too far from home, so you should be able to make it home. Now, what if you're on vacation? You and the family, you're on vacation and you're hours and hours away, maybe states away from home, and something happens. The idea of getting back home may become problematic. Maybe fuel supplies all of a sudden shut down. Electricity isn't working to pump the fuel. There's all types of scenarios like that. Your vehicle breaks down and you're unable to repair it to get home. So you have to kind of factor in that. So there's some things to think about for those of you that, especially those of you that live and or work in a city environment. And everyone else needs to think about this too, because odds are, even if you live way out in the sticks, at different points in your life, you are going to travel in and through larger city areas. You need to have things in your vehicle at all times. Have a get-home bag, bug-out bag, something like that. Those are pretty much one and the same, in my opinion. Whatever you want to call them. And basically what you're looking at is at least a 3-day supply. Something that will hold you over for 3 days. You may need more, but at least a 3-day minimum. And we're talking, food, water, shelter, and a few, tool type things, knife, rope, cordage, things like that, first aid, shelter type, items that are going to be in that bag. And I'm not going into the details of the contents of that bag. You can find it on other videos. I can do one later on also. But basically have something like that. And you need to have something like that for everyone. So if you have a 3-day get-home bug-out bag for yourself, but you have 4 kids and a wife, that's going to be problematic because that 3-day supply might last 1 meal. So you need to plan to have enough for everyone that's going to be in the vehicle, especially if you're traveling. If you're on vacation, you need to have some things in your vehicle in case something happens. Like I said, if you're living or working in an urban area or suburban area, you might be able to actually get back home. It may take you a couple of days, but if something happens and your vehicle becomes inoperable and you're on foot, you could possibly get back home because of the distance. But, if you're halfway across the country on a vacation, it's probably not going to happen. So you need to, when you take long trips, along with your planning for your vacation or your long trips, you need to factor in, some kind of plan. At least get the idea bouncing around in your head of what are you going to do if something happens. Interstates can become very problematic because many of them now are built with barriers along the road that forces you to stay on that road. They do that so that in evacuations, the people cannot just, cut cross country and get off of the interstate. They want you to stay on that interstate. The problem is it becomes very congested. And what if, you run out of fuel or your vehicle breaks down, something like that, and you're not able to get off the interstate? It becomes difficult. So if at all possible, stay away from those areas. If you're in some type of evacuation or apocalyptic, big, huge, big disaster type of scenario, you need to try to stay away from those interstates. You should have a map. You should always have a physical map so that you can figure out the best routes to get out of there that aren't those interstates. There's no guarantee your cell phone or your GPS is going to work, so don't rely on those. Stay with your vehicle as long as you can. There may be a few scenarios that if your vehicle is still operating, that it would be better to leave it, but most usually I don't think that's going to be the case. If your vehicle is still operable, stay with it. It offers protection, and it makes you much more mobile. You can cover long distances. Now, your vehicle could become inoperable. It could be an EMP. It could run out of fuel. It could be, it just breaks down. And you're unable to get it repaired because of, this evacuation or whatever, situation is going on. You're just unable to get it repaired. So you have to plan for, you may have to ditch that vehicle. You may have to ditch it and go on foot. If that happens, you need to start having some plans or at least some ideas in your head of which direction you're headed. If you're going home or if you're just trying to get out of the city, you need to kind of have some ideas going on of, what are you going to be looking for? Because you're going to need shelter, off and on. Even if you're mobile and on foot, at times, in the evenings, at night, different things like that, you need to get to some kind of shelter. So, so start planning that kind of stuff. This is a very critical thing that most people don't think about when they're in kind of the prepping mindset. Oops, sorry about that. Kicked my camera. Is what do you do when you're traveling, or what do you do when you're going through the big city? So many preppers, there's this goal to get more, out in the woods if possible, bugging out to the woods. Well, sometimes it's just not a, possibility, and with the amount of people that live and work and commute through large city areas, the odds are there's going to be a lot of you that could get stuck in one of these places if something bad happens. So today's video really isn't so much specifics. I'm thinking I might go into some of those specifics in some videos later on of what to do, but these are things that you need to start thinking of. And I know many of you already do. Many of you are already kind of, getting plans or have plans made for the case that you're in the city. But you need to do that. Have extra supplies in your vehicle. If you're going on vacation, if it's possible, keep a 5-gallon can of gas in your vehicle in case you start to run out and you're unable to get that 5 gallons. That might get you to where you need to be to get more fuel or something. Most vehicles 5 gallons will get you a good little distance. Medical supplies, food supplies, shelter supplies, blankets, those types of things. Make sure you have adequate shoes. Many people, it's hot, it's the summertime, so hold on, there's a big old semi getting ready to pass me, so you may not be able to hear me for a minute. If it's the summertime, you may be wearing shorts and sandals, and then all of a sudden you gotta, walk 20, 30, 40 miles. Shorts and sandals is not ideal. So, have a pair of spare boots in the back at all times. Footwear for the family, those types of things. These are, stuff you need to start thinking about. If you've got an SUV or pickup, that's great. You can keep a tub of, these types of things in the back of it. If you're in a little car, it's going to take up a lot more room. So you kind of have to work with what you have. The problem is when you're in an urban, a larger populated area, is to deal with people. People in numbers, they panic and they become very dangerous. Panicking people are dangerous people. And so you have to think about that of, what are you going to do when all these people, and you may be in an area where there may be millions of people in a fairly concentrated, geographic area. What are you going to do when all these people can't eat, can't drink, can't get on their internet? They have no electricity, they have no running water. They're going to panic. And some of them could very possibly do some bad things. So, if you're in a place in the city where you can kind of hunker down for a while, that might be good. That might be the best scenario. Bugging out immediately is not always the best thing. So if you can kind of hunker down for a while and let a few days pass to where some of the panic may be over, that might be a good thing. It really all depends on where you're at. If bugging in is going to be the best thing, if you're prepared for that. And then at some point, it's very likely that you're going to have to make that decision of trying to get out of the city, especially if we're talking a long-term down situation. Food supplies are going to start running short, water, things like that, and you're more likely to find that out in the country, in the wild, than you're going to find that in the city. And there's less people out in the country to fight over it. So at some point, your plan is most likely going to include bugging out. How are you going to do that? Have you worked that out in your head? Do you have a family? Do you have kids? How are you going to bug out if you got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old and a wife that's 6 months pregnant? Those types of things. Can you really bug out? This is the kind of stuff that a lot of people just don't think about. They think about, we got a bunch of freeze-dried food, I've got some bottled water, I've got a first aid bag, stuff like that. Well, what happens when you're, in an area that becomes just dangerous to live in? Or you're traveling through an area that's dangerous to travel through that because of what's happening? How do you get out of that situation? So it's something that you all need to start thinking of. I'll start working on some follow-up videos to this where I get more details for those of you. But, like I said, I'm passing through. You can't tell it too much here, but I am in a fairly large urban environment. I'm just kind of on the edge of it right now. And it made me think of that. What happens? What happens to me if something, bad, some type of, bad scenario happens while I'm here? How do I get out of it? So, anyways, start thinking about that. Leave your comments, because I know many of you already do have plans for this, and then I will start working on follow-up videos that get into more details of bugging out or bugging in a urban environment. All right, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.